It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another Real Estate Podcast, the end of another working week as we continue to talk about your property news, trends, and what is happening from the Gold Coast to Melbourne. You can hear us and stream us on multiple platforms, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. Yes, the working week. I tell you what, it's gone by pretty fast this week, February the 21st. And good morning to you, Martin, in Chatswood there in Sydney this morning. You have emailed in with a comment that I have not heard before. You say that you've recently upgraded into a house from an apartment. Well done. But you recently heard us talking about when buying, it's always a great idea to walk the street and also knock on the doors and talk to the neighbours just to get a little bit of a sense to what that neighbourhood is doing. However, what happened to you is all to do with a basketball hoop at the back of the property next to you with two teenagers constantly throwing down shots. You say that the noise is just as bad as barking dogs. Martin, I've got to say I do feel for you. It's driving you mental, and you have a newborn and the noise is causing problems for baby to sleep. So what is the solution to avoid what has happened to Martin here? Well, the only thing that I could really think of, if you're in the throes of buying a property and maybe this is coming across your bow thinking, gee, we don't want this to replicate itself, maybe you could do some kind of recon with a drone. Get a drone up in the air and then you can see in the backyard. But let us know if you are experiencing similar problems. Our email address, as always, is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. Well, let's take you off to Perth and catch up with Trent Fleskens from Strategic Property Group. And good morning to you, Trent. Have you encountered any of those sorts of problems that poor old Martin is having?
Look, I feel for Martin. Good morning. I feel for Martin. But at the same time, I'd also express that we're in a neighbourhood here. I mean, kids are going to be playing, whether it's in the pool or playing tennis or playing basketball. As much as you can do your recon, there could also be a barking dog that comes and goes throughout the years. You live in a neighbourhood and these sort of noises are totally normal and acceptable. And I would assume coming from an apartment, you've probably heard a lot more nefarious noises above and below you as well. So, I feel for you if it's impacting your life. But at the same time, I would say unless you're living on a rural property, this is just life.
Yeah, we'll get to those rural properties in just a moment. Now, we were talking to Eliza Owen from CoreLogic on Monday about Perth's property market is easing, with median selling times increasing from 10 to 15 days. While this signals a shift from last year's frenzy, demand still remains strong, so a bit of a mixed bag. Meanwhile, regional WA defies the trends with properties selling faster than before, dropping from 29 to 23 days. So what do you make of all of that?
Geez, I have to say it feels like over from Perth, there's a constant narrative from the East Coast looking to find any excuse to talk down the wins of Perth, whether it's sports or whether it's our property market. The reality is right now what we're seeing is a little bit of buyer fatigue coming into the end of last year. A lot of even just real estate agents gone on holiday for over a month, you can anecdotally. But more importantly, the best metaphor I could give you is imagine putting a chicken in the oven to make roast chicken, and you've put the oven at 250 degrees. The chicken is, for all intents and purposes, absolutely burning. And what's happened is you've turned the oven down to 235 degrees. That's where we are in Perth right now. Nominally, arbitrarily, yes, we've seen numbers go from 10 days of median sales to 15 days. We've seen stock on market increase from the 3,000s to the 4,000s. A balanced market in Perth has about 14,000 properties in it. A median house selling days across anywhere in the country would generally be more like a month. for a balanced market. So when we're talking about these sort of numbers and saying Perth is easing, it really doesn't tell the whole story, because when you tell the next part of this story, it's, Perth's market is still growing every month. And the limiter here in Perth, if there is one, is certainly not the relationship between demand and supply. Right now, we have 90,000 people entering Western Australia every year who need about 40,000 homes, going on usual 2 and a bit people per dwelling metrics. We build 15,000 homes right now in Western Australia, and we can't figure out how to build more. And that's been happening for a few years now. And we can't build more than 1,000 apartments a year because the numbers just don't stack up with regards to cost versus what we are able to sell these to the public for. So we don't really have any solutions. The government doesn't have any solutions. The industry is trying at its best to figure out how to get more feet on the ground.
All right, well, let's have a look at the vendor discounting in Perth, because it remains low but is rising, with sellers offering a median discount of minus 3.2%. That is up from minus 2.6% last year. So what's going on there with the discounters? Because the buyers are getting a little bit more of an upper hand.
So what's been happening in the last 4 months, really, since, I guess, September time, is we have seen the amount of properties in the market go from 3 and a bit thousand to 4,500 properties in that time. And so normally buyers are experiencing more than 2 properties on the weekend that they can go and see on a home open in their area. And now it might be 3 or 4. So people have a little bit more choice. The FOMO has, the level of FOMO has dropped a little bit. And therefore, there's a little bit of pragmatism coming in where people in Perth are recognising, hey, a suburb like Morley, for example, 5 years ago, I could buy this 40-year-old home on 800 square metres for $550,000. It was that pretty much that same home in the back of Morley, the lower socio-demographic part of Morley, it just sold for $1,070,000 in last week. So people are starting to, one, go, hang on a second, what am I getting for my money here? Taking a little bit more time. 2, with interest rates the way they have been, starting to hit nominal affordability caps at different socioeconomic levels in Perth. And 3, just a little bit more choice, making people think for a second. And I'd say the 4th thing, given the amount of rise in value in the price of housing in Perth in the last few years, sellers have gotten pretty boisterous and greedy and saying, well, look, the last one sold for 900, I'm going to put mine on for $1 million and see what happens. And so naturally you're going to see some discounting where the market's not always going to meet these unrealistic numbers sellers are trying to get.
All right, we're talking with Trent this morning. When we come back, we'll put this question to him. The experts are saying the transition in Perth from a white-hot to a red-hot market is making conditions slightly more balanced for buyers. We'll get the answer to that next.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
And chop off your own backyard and sell it to make some money to pay off your own home. Subdivision around there will cost you around about $20,000. But at the moment, if you chopped off a backyard in Elizabeth or Davern Park, you're probably going to sell that block of land for around about $150,000.
I want you to zero in, Margaret, on these 12 capital city suburbs. The median house price, $500,000 or less. You're going to spoil the party a little bit here.
The bad news is that all but 2 of them are not houses that you're buying. And there are quite a number of reasons why they report as houses. When I'm actually searching for properties in a lot of these areas, many states have different terms to describe their housings, but the house that you're buying is more than likely attached to the house next door, which puts then a limitation as to how much development you can do if that's what you want to do.
And it is a Real Estate Friday. Welcome to it. A weekend just around the corner. We've got Trent with us in Perth, talking all things Perth property this morning. And Perth home values. Now, this surged 7.1% in mid-2024, but slowed to 1% in early 2025. Suburb-level data shows 18% of areas experienced price declines, reflecting a little bit of a market shift. However, it's the way that you're looking at it, as you've heard Trent say. Now, Trent, what about what the experts are saying? This transition from a white-hot to a red-hot market, some people might not know what that means.
Yeah, exactly right. It's exactly what the Perth market is. White hot being absolutely boiling over the pot, to red hot meaning your pasta's getting cooked nicely. At the moment, people are looking at the data in this isolation of a 4 or 5 month period and saying, oh, Perth's market's cooling. But the reality is we're coming off of a 70% increase in growth in most notable suburban areas in Perth over the last 5 years. And there has to be a point at some time where people are a bit fatigued. They're taking a second to think. They're taking a second to get their pre-approvals reassessed because they can't buy what they were trying to buy 6 months earlier and missed out on. And that is what happened over that last quarter of Perth. One thing that we're pretty confident on, and I'm pretty strong on, is the demand-supply relationships in Perth have not improved, in that we haven't figured out how to supply the amount of houses that we currently need for the amount of people coming into Perth. And that when you think about just basic relationship with affordability, Perth's median salary is higher than Sydney's. Sydney's median house price is nearly double Perth's. We pay the same interest rates. We have the same laws about serviceability with all the lenders in the country. And so nominally, Perth's theoretical affordability cap is actually Sydney's price, because you can see where Sydney's obviously maxing out from affordability levels rather than really demand and supply. So we've actually got still a lot of fat to go. So for us to come off these 23, 24% growth years and come back down to, let's say, 10%. It is white hot to red hot. It is not slowing to negative. That is, we don't have that capacity to be going backwards where sellers need to sell more than buyers need to buy anytime soon.
Now, back to poor old Martin there in Chatswood in New South Wales, buying that property and having the basketball hoop. Perhaps, Martin, you should have bought in country towns in WA. They are seeing increased demand as more city residents relocate and fewer leave regional areas. This trend has actually driven stronger price growth outside of Perth. So what are you seeing around all of that, Trent?
There's two factors here. The first one is affordability. Naturally, most areas regionally in Western Australia are cheaper than Perth. So as people struggle to reach those heights in the city, they're moving to places like Bunbury, like Albany, Busselton, Geraldton, Kalgoorlie. Obviously, they're going there because they've got work, and that's a big positive, where historically a lot of these towns were a bit quieter than they are these days. Most of these towns now are just busy with the industries that consume them. The second part is definitely on the supply side. Most of these towns have 0, 1 or 2 builders in them. And so when you have a small increase in population growth and therefore demand for housing, and you have a builder or two that's capacity might be 5 or 10 homes a year, and the cost to construct those homes is far and above the median house price in those suburbs in the first place for the established homes, then you're going to see this chronic pain, which is perfectly exemplified back in the day, and to be honest, happening not to the same extent, but in a similar direction in Karratha, where you see a country town of 10,000 people, obviously mining dominated in iron ore up Karratha, where it went from $300,000 median house price up to over $1 million, where rents back up to $900, $1,000 a week. Obviously, there's a lot of costs and insurance costs and maintenance costs to be balancing out with those decisions to invest. But it talks to the fact that small increases in population growth in these areas is all that's needed to have big impacts on increases in the median house price.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Good on you, Trent. Thank you for giving us a little bit of a breakdown this morning on WA Regional and what is happening there in Perth. Enjoy the upcoming weekend, and thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
Thanks very much.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.